A couple of years ago, Aoshima came out with the Pagani Huayra, a pretty exciting kit of one of the most beautiful cars around in my personal opinion. Now, I have never really started to think about building that kit, as I have seen various around. They are pretty complicated, need loads of carbon fiber, and I basically was a bit scared to do it. Now, nonetheless, I do have it in my collection somewhere, and I might build it someday. But for now, we need to start with the basics, and that is, of course, the Pagani Zonda. Aoshima just came out with this kit. This is the first Pagani model that ever came to market, the Zonda C12 from the early 2000s, and from there on, it had various different iterations, some changes here and there, upgrades, and all sorts of various different client cars with special commissions on them. Now, at the time of filming, I just found out that Aoshima will be doing a Zonda F as well, and that should be coming out pretty soon. That is, in the basic form, a pretty similar car to this one, but with a couple of aero changes and upgrades here and there. So that is a good kit to look out for as well in the future. But for now, the main focus, of course, is on the Zonda C12, and let's just see what is inside of the box. A nice little surprise, Aoshima also sent out the photo etch set for this kit itself. It is specifically designed for the C12 and C12S and has a lot of nice photo etch upgrades for some of the grills, the brakes, and additional detailing all around, including some exhaust tips and also various metal transfer stickers for some of the finer details and or logos on the engine itself. So we'll jump into this one a little later on after we've taken a look at the rest of the kit. So the box itself is pretty big, and that usually means that there are a lot of parts in here. So I'll just go through all of the sprues one by one, just showing them quickly, and then later on I will unpack all of them and show them in a bit more detail. With that first initial quick look through all the parts, it is already pretty impressive. Lots of sprues, lots of parts, and incredible amounts of detail. And when you look even closer at the parts themselves, the detail doesn't seem to end. All of the pieces and parts have been incredibly well designed, and nothing has been saved on or made easier for them. They simply just took pretty much every single detail that it could find and added it to the kit itself. Even some smaller pieces, I believe these are some horns, other stuff for inside the engine bay and on the chassis, a lot of parts for the suspension and steering. Everything has been detailed. Even the springs, of course, and lots of other parts all around. One of the main highlights, apart from the extravagant design on the exterior, is of course the super cool V12 by AMG, Mercedes, that is used in these cars. And with the hood being able to open pretty much fully and every single part being exposed to your eyeballs, of course they could not skip on any details here either. So the main engine block itself is pretty impressive, but that of course is not it. They just kept on detailing with all of the other parts that need to be added onto it as well to an extreme level. Some of the finer detail pieces, like the brakes, you can really see to what extent of detail they went. The calipers themselves are incredibly nicely detailed. The discs have nice drilled pattern in it, and of course all of the nuts and bolts on that center section are there too. Same goes for some of the smaller grills. This one is for around the exhaust tips. It also has some nice mesh pattern in it. Moving over from the chassis to the interior, so just like the engine bay, you can open the hood, you can open the front canopy as well, and for the interior you can open both doors if you choose to assemble it that way. Now that means that the interior needs a lot of detailed pieces too. So the door panels, or at least the entire door panel, is also incredibly nice detail. It does appear to be just one piece, as it is one piece, as you can obviously see, but nonetheless all of the details are there, so with a bit of paint and masking this can look incredible. On the dashboard, however, this seems to be made out of multiple different pieces. Some of the other pieces are probably made out of aluminum, or at least coated in a sort of aluminum-like finish, and therefore of course need to be different, or at least separate parts, as that makes it a lot easier and simpler to detail as they come separate. You don't have to do any complicated masking of sorts. The seats themselves are also made out of multiple pieces, the back probably needing some carbon fiber decals to fully finish them off, and the fronts of course needing to be painted in a nice leather color. Some more of these super nice meshes are here too. And on this second one there is the Zonda logo as well, nicely stanced or engraved, or none of those, just put on top of it as a super cool detail. So like I said, to finalize the interior side of things off, there is of course a separate sprue with some chrome pieces on it. This one does not seem to be finished perfectly and has a lot of imperfections. But be aware, this is another of those pre-production kits, so it is not the final production that should be haunted by these mistakes. I simply will just strip them off and repaint them, but just be aware this should not be a problem on your kit, of course, only on the one that I have here, as this is one of the pre-production samples. There are two more sprues included. One is the same silver chromish finish as the interior pieces. It has a couple more of those here and there, and also some engine parts, incredibly nicely detailed wheels with the super cool original design by Pagani, of course. And then there is also the exhaust muffler. I think this is the muffler as well, but then in a full mirror chrome finish, as this will be one of the pieces that can be seen if you're deciding to use a see-through mesh on the rear where the exhaust tips come through. You can take a glance at these parts as well. So it is nice that they have added the detail of various different tones of silver and or chrome finishes. So the exterior is built up in a very similar way that the chassis is itself. So the main chassis comes in one piece and you build all of the parts on top of it. Same goes for the exterior. You have the main skeleton piece where of course the windows, or the really big clear part for the front, the sunroof, and also part of the rear is put on, of course. Then you can go for the doors, various other bits and pieces all around. And again, these are molded in white, very nicely done as well, so you don't have any problems with various different colors that you might want to stick on top of it, as white is a really good base color for the plastic to start off with. So on some of these parts here, you can see on the doors, they even added the lock in here as well and detailed it to another level. I've never really seen this done before. I have seen companies just add the lock in there, but simply just be a round piece. This one actually seems to have the slit in it as well for the key to fit in. Some pieces that needed to be added onto it, of course, are the side skirts made out of different pieces. On the C12, these need to be body color, and then you have a little bit of an extension or the underside of this side skirt, which needs to be carbon fiber. So they made that out of a separate part, making it a lot easier to simply just paint it black or gunmetal, or of course to add carbon fiber decals to it. Same goes with the front splitter. And then of course these headlights themselves, these are the headlight buckets. They are made out of carbon fiber on the real car too. So again, with these being separate pieces, it makes it a lot easier. So you can just simply paint them and then add the carbon fiber decals to them, or simply just leave them painted, of course. On the rear of the car, there are multiple pieces. Again, most of these will just need to be painted in body color. This rear diffuser part, this part you can see through here is where the exhaust goes, of course. And if you have the Photo Etch upgrade set or just want to add some mesh yourself, then this is see-through and you can see the exhaust part through it, which I showed earlier. The wing is also a pretty interesting design on the C12. It is a split design in the middle. It basically has two wings, and that of course is nicely replicated here as well. And then to finalize pretty much all of the exterior parts, we have the front clamshell and of course the main engine cover for the rear. Again, a lot of nice details shown everywhere. Some of these parts for the main turn signals indicators. These of course are the holes for those headlight lenses buckets that I had shown earlier, and on the inside it is nicely done as well, super smooth. It does have a bit of a mold line here, but that of course is to be expected. And then the engine cover itself, again, it has a lot of nice features to it. This is just all completely cut through. You can add the mesh in here, or if you have the upgraded Photo Etch set, you can of course just use that mesh instead and make it a lot more realistic and show all of the incredible detail even when the model is closed up fully. For various details around the model, there are many sprues with clear parts in them and even different colors, so you don't even have to paint them, but simply just have to assemble all of them. Then there is one final sprue of clear parts as well. Like I said earlier, one big piece for the front, the top sunroof and the rear window, some of the side windows, of course, for in the doors, and some more clear parts for all around. And in order to make it a lot easier to paint some of those clear parts, you of course have some masks included in this kit as well. These are pre-cut and pre-sized, so should just simply be installed. Then you can paint those black edges around all of the windows, and of course just remove these and be left with a super nice and crisp finish, instead of just having to apply masking tape and cutting them out yourself, and probably making some mistakes here and there like I do every once in a while. There is a final bag of parts too, with the tires in them. The fronts are smaller and thinner than the rears, and the rears are also a bit wider. The thread pattern is super nicely done in there, and it even has some very crisp detail on the side wall too. The wheels are mounted with these poly caps and some plastic pins, and I believe these parts are here to either help the doors or the hood and front clamshell to stay open if you want to display it in the fully opened up version. There is a small decal sheet included as well. It has a couple of standardized plates, American sized, and of course the European ones, various different Pagani logos, the C12, Zonda S, and other AMG bits, Mercedes stuff for on the engine, also some parts for on the wheels, and of course some parts for the interior as well. These are nicely printed, have a super nice gloss finish on them too, and the details look really, really sharp and crisp and should add a lot to the finalized model. So straight out of the box, this is already an incredibly detailed kit. and already super nice to build. You can take it up a notch, and that is by adding the photo etch set to it. This is made by Aoshima as well and should fit perfectly on the kit. Now in this photo etch set you have a couple of key detail parts to upgrade it, mainly speaking about these disc brakes, making them out of metal, giving them a super realistic finish, various meshes of course as well for on some of the radiators, intercoolers and some other parts. And then mainly the most interesting part of all, in the kit itself, all of these mesh grills for all around are just a solid piece. And with this, it upgrades it to a see-through finish, of course, and then you can see all of the nice details through all of these meshes, showing through to the engine bay and also some of the other parts around it. Now with the kit you of course get some exhaust tips as well in the main kit themselves. They are made out of plastic, but with this upgraded photo etch sheet you get some made out of metal, which look a lot better and a lot more realistic. And then finally, of course, these are already in the decal sheet itself, but those decals will pretty much always look a bit silvery and not completely realistic to the actual car. So upgrading this is a nice set as well, with some metal transfer stickers for all round to finalize it off and complete your build. It has been out in certain markets, but not everywhere yet. It is the Aoshima brown carton box.